Hello and welcome to For the Love of Nature, a podcast where we tell you everything you need to know about nature and probably more than you wanted to know. I'm Laura.
I'm Katy, and today we're going to be doing one of our deep dive science nerd episodes into gymnosperms.
Woo! No, but really, I always think these are kind of cool because I learn so much when I write these.
No, I do too, and these are some of our, believe it or not, some of our more popular episodes that people listen to. But again, I think it's simply because somebody's like, there's like students that are Googling, like, give me, you know what I mean? Like they're studying for a test and they just want something that's like easily digestible.
Yeah,
and they're like,
or just
search.
This is like, if you are interested even a little bit in this kind of stuff, it is a good introduction. So in the past, guys, we've done these taxonomy episodes and we've started really broad and we've gotten smaller. So real quick, just as a reminder, or for any new listener, the animal and plant kingdom are divided into more and more specific categories. You start with kingdom, phylum, class, and then like plants. Of course, plant people made it even more difficult by like naming
they're
different
freaking
things.
Plant people.
But basically, it goes all the way down to species. And so in the past, we've talked about fungi, we've talked about mosses and ferns, we've done a couple other things. Now
Sorry, you said fungi, and I said I barely know him.
I know.
But go ahead.
My first problem.
Every time.
I think it's my first joke that I ever remember learning.
Right.
But yeah, so today we're going to be talking about gymnosperms and how they were the first trees seen on Earth, and are still some of the largest and longest living ones today.
Yep. So gymnosperms are, like Laura said, a diverse group of plants that are characterized by the presence of seeds that are not enclosed in an ovary. These plants are characterized to be, or considered to be, the oldest and most primitive seed-bearing plants, dating back to the Carboniferous period. Carboniferous. It's
an F. Which is the way you said it. Carbonivorous.
Yeah.
Sounds like somebody was eating somebody. Yeah.
Just everything eats everything then. It's fine. It's fine. One of the main characteristics of gymnosperm is that they have naked seeds, which means that the seeds are not surrounded by a fruit or any other type of protective structure.
Boy, I really want someone to draw this as fan art. Please draw me like
naked
that.
Seed.
A naked seed. Like a tastefully naked seed.
Not just any naked seed.
Yeah, I don't want like a lewd naked seed. I don't want a creepy fan art. I want a tastefully naked seed.
Tastefully done naked seed. Come on, people. What are you thinking?
Preferably funny.
Yeah. So this feature, though, is what distinguishes the gymnosperms from the angiosperms, which have enclosed seeds. The angiosperms do. Gymnosperms also have leaves that are typically needle-like or scale-like in appearance, and they do not produce flowers.
Yeah, although I feel like the leaf thing is very loose.
Not true. Yeah, very. Yeah, because the one that I talk about is not like that. Anyway.
I guess if you're talking about the vast majority of species, then yes.
Then yeah. But not everything. But again, it's freaking plants. There's always these dang exceptions to everything. Another key characteristic of the gymnosperms is their ability to thrive in harsh environments. Many species of gymnosperms are adapted to survive in cold, arid, or nutrient-poor conditions. This is due in part to their unique reproductive structures, which often rely on wind or other environmental factors to disperse their seeds. Additionally, gymnosperms are able to form symbiotic relationships with fungi, which, I mean, we've talked about that several times on this show, which helps them to obtain nutrients from the soil. Some of the most well-known examples of gymnosperms include conifers, like pine, spruce, fir trees, as well as cycads, ginkgos, and a few others. Overall, the diverse characteristics of gymnosperms have allowed them to thrive and adapt over millions of years, making them an important part of the Earth's ecosystem.
Yeah, and it makes sense that, they would be one of the first. So mosses and ferns first, and then these guys, because they're ready for the harsh environment of early Earth.
They're ready to go.
Yeah. All right, well, I'm going to just dive right in. So we broke it down into the different, what plant people call divisions.
Plant people.
Whereas, like, animal people would call these, classes? I think this is class level. Or maybe phylums. I don't know, whatever. So anyway,
botanists.
I have conifers. So we're going to start because it's the most accessible of the gymnosperms. Everybody knows what a pine tree is for the most part. The grouping is actually called Pinophyta. Makes sense. Think pine.
Pine.
So what is a conifer? It is a woody plant. Most of them are trees. Both the pollen-bearing cones, so what makes, I guess the other thing, the naked seed part, most of them are some kind of cone, they're never a fruit. Not
the fleshy. Not the fleshy, yeah.
Yeah, flowers lead to fruits, and the naked seeds usually have cones that they're in. So anyway, there are pollen-bearing cones, the boy plant part, and then the ovule-bearing cones, which are the girl part. Sometimes they're on the same plant, sometimes they're on different plants. In the case of conifers, they are on the same plant. Okay, typically.
Yeah, in my example, the first one that I'm going to go over is they're two separate ones too.
Right.
So
it
give us
depends
a nice variety.
on the gymnosperm. All conifers are wind-pollinated, and the cones can be very different in size and appearance. Some are hard, some are fleshy, which is a terrible word, but
it is
also interesting. And when the cone is fleshy, they're called arils. So that's like something on like a yew bush. They're like these red, they almost look like olives. Some cones disintegrate quickly, while some are held onto the tree for up to 80 years and only come down when a fire comes through. And some cones have seeds that are...
Again, I mean, I know so many different species. They need, fires and everything to, like, disperse their seeds and nutrient story. I mean, it's great. But at the same time, I like that that's whenever pine trees are like, you know what? This is what's going to make me move. Yeah. It's a fire. The whole forest going up in flames.
They're just really hard to turn on.
Right. But a fire.
So they... Some cones have seeds that are wind dispersed. Some have nuts, aka pine nuts, and some are meant to be eaten and then pass through the digestive system. Only pines have pine cones. Pines are a type of conifer. Conifers have cones, specifically pines have pine cones. They all have simple leaves. Some are scale-like, some are needle-like, and occasionally they're like broad blades, but still kind of look like a needle. Most of them are evergreens, which means they hold on to their leaves anywhere from 2 to 40 years before they lose them.
Jeez.
Only like a couple of species are deciduous, meaning they lose those leaves.
Yeah.
The majority have leaves that are spiraled. So that means that their leaves are all, like a deciduous tree, like the ones that have big broad leaves. They all are open to the sun. They get as much as they can. It's the same like that with these guys. They just don't have as big of leaves. But their leaves are always positioned to capture the most sunlight, and those leaves are spiraled so that they're not all competing with each other. And they're usually dark green, which is actually better for capturing light in poor lighting, which is good for them because a lot of gymnosperms are growing in upper latitudes or in shade. So they're making the most of it. And then last but not least, many of them produce resin, which is like a sap, but like glue. It's got kind of like...
It's way more intense than sap.
Yeah. It's not like, watery maple syrup. This is like...
No, super glue.
Right.
It sucks.
It's super glue that has like antifungal and antibacterial and stuff properties.
But getting it off of anything is horrible.
It can even like kill animals that are like trying to get into the tree.
Oh, easily, yeah.
So some examples of conifer. There are actually 6 to 8 families, depending on which botanist you ask. Which means there are about 630 species. They're broken down into the yews, the cypresses, the umbrella pines, the podocarps, the araucarius. Definitely probably saying that wrong. Most of them are from New Zealand.
Listen, there's got to be more than me mispronouncing everything on this show. So
this is not a Latin word. So, I'm lost.
Latin words Laura can say. Just everyday English she can't do.
No, I think it's probably a different language. There was the Willemia pine, which is a part of that group, was actually just discovered in 1994. So they're still finding some of these guys. And then finally pines, which are like your cedars, firs, spruces, hemlocks, larches, and redwoods. I just wanted to end my section with a couple of fun facts about conifers because they are incredible plants. And I definitely think we should do another episode on just them and dive into like the ethnobotany and stuff like that, like how they're related with people. But they started growing about 300 million years ago. So actually after the horseshoe crab, which we talked about in the last episode. And some of the modern groups have actually been around for 60 to 120 million years, which is a long time for them modern to still be alive.
Yeah, geez.
Some of the oldest living things on Earth are conifers, like the bristlecone pines in California that are about 5,000 years old. They're also the tallest or most massive of living things. The coastal redwoods get to be 328 feet or 100 plus meters high. And the giant sequoias have circumferences of 31 meters or 101.5 feet.
Dang.
I want to see one so bad. I've never seen
Me
one in
too.
real life, and I'm dying.
I know, me too. I so badly. People that know me know I do film photography and stuff on the side, and I so badly want to run through like redwood forest and just film would be amazing.
Yeah.
So good.
Run through the branches. 45% of the world's annual lumber comes from conifers, plus the wood pulp that's used to make paper and plastics. So,
as I say, everything, because pine grows so fast.
Yeah. So
everything is pine.
To grow, and then
any cheap furniture that you would buy that's like all the pressed particle board is
pine.
Yep.
And then coniferous forests, which are forests that are primarily made of conifers, consist of 1/3 of all forests on Earth and make up 15% of all land area. It's the largest land-based biome. So, it's really because there are these crazy, giant coniferous forests all along the upper part of the northern hemisphere. Like, Canada, Russia.
Cold.
Yeah. Cold, snowy, and no other trees are there. And so 15% of the entire globe is covered in conifers, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
And conifers have been used by people for a variety of things besides just timber, including medicine, glue, tar, food, weaving material, ornaments, jewelry, and others. So conifers.
Just everything.
Yeah. They're a catch-all, awesome tree. Plus Christmas trees.
Plus Christmas trees. I love Christmas. Favorite holiday. Hands down my favorite holiday. Yeah, I do. I like trees. I'm gonna have to get out The Hidden Life of Trees again and read it. That's such a good book. Anyway, all right. So the plant, you were done, right?
Yeah.
Okay. The plant that the grouping that I'm gonna talk about, which it is literally just a plant now. There's only one left. It's the ginkgo plant. Just one.
Like the tuatara.
Yeah. One. Yep. So this is also known as the maidenhair tree. It's also known as a living fossil that has survived for over 200 million years. Wow. Native to China, the ginkgo has become a popular ornamental tree around the world for its unique characteristics and medicinal properties.
It is really beautiful.
It is. It is. And
when it's green and when it's...
It is. Yeah, it is a good looking... Yeah, it is a good looking tree. With the ginkgo plant...
That is a fine looking tree.
I was going to say, dude, that is a fine looking tree right there. That's a fine looking ginkgo. Speaking of moving these plants, though, Ohio recently banned the Bradford pears. You can't.
Good for them,
right? You can't.
Tree.
They are, and you can't plant. You can't do anything with them anymore. You just basically got to get rid of them. Anyway, but this is a fine looking plant. So the ginkgo plant that I'm going to explore, I'm going to just talk about the history, the physical characteristics, medicinal beliefs, and then the cultural significance of the ginkgo plant. Because Laura, these are kind of just a tree. A tree is a tree. That is a tree. There's only so much you can talk about. So I figured I'd dive a little bit more into some of the more aspects of the tree that is a tree. The ginkgo tree has a long and storied history dating back to the time of dinosaurs. Fossil records suggest ginkgo trees were once widespread across North America, Europe, and Asia. However, over time, they became extinct to most parts of the world, except for a very small region in China where they continue to thrive. It wasn't until the 1700s that ginkgo seeds were brought to Europe and later to the United States, where they became popular ornamental trees. Physically, the ginkgo tree is unique in several ways. It is a deciduous tree, which means it loses its leaves in the fall. And like Laura said earlier, they get to be that bright, beautiful yellow color. So the leaves themselves, though, that they are fan-shaped and can grow up to 3 inches long. The ginkgo trees are also dioecious, meaning that the male and female trees produce separate reproductive structures. Female trees produce a fruit-like structure. Remember, it's not a fruit, though, because these are gymnosperms, but it looks like it. And that is called a seed, not to make any of this more confusing than it is. But it's about the size of a small plum. These seeds have a foul odor when they fall to the ground, earning them the nickname stinky fruit.
Yeah,
real original.
Usually they only plant guys.
Yeah, they do. Because of that. Yeah, they mostly only plant male trees because of stinky fruit. That's real original. Everything else that these plant people do to make these things so complicated, and they're like, oh, what is this? Stinky fruit. So the medicinal properties of ginkgo seeds have been known for centuries in traditional Chinese medicine. The seeds are believed to improve cognitive function, memory, and circulation. In recent years, scientific studies have confirmed some of these benefits. For example, ginkgo supplements have been shown to improve memory in people with dementia and reduce the risk of stroke in older adults. However, it is important to note that ginkgo supplements can have side effects just like everything else, so it should be taken under the guidance of a healthcare professional. The ginkgo plant also has cultural significance in many parts of the world. In China, the ginkgo tree is considered to be a symbol of longevity and resilience, which makes sense because it is forever old. It's often planted near temples and other religious sites. In Japan, the ginkgo is also a popular ornamental tree, and its leaves are used in traditional tea ceremonies. And then in the West here, ginkgo trees are often planted in parks and gardens for their aesthetic values. I like how every other place in the world is like, important place, important use. We're like, it looks good. Like, let's just put it there.
It's a fine-looking tree.
It's a fine-looking tree. It's a fine-looking tree. Finally, it is worth noting, though, that the ginkgo tree is also under threat from environmental factors, climate change, pollution, habitat destruction, again, because it is in such a tiny little area naturally in China. Yes, it's everywhere, but
native.
Only... Yeah, the native area is very much so under threat. So in conclusion, the ginkgo plant is pretty remarkable and has survived for millions of years and has been valued for its ornamental medicinal properties. While much is still unknown about the full extent of the medicinal benefits, the ginkgo plant remains an important part of traditional medicine in many cultures. And efforts to conserve them. I mean, again, it's the last of its group, the last of its tree plant, so we probably should, again, keep it around.
Yeah. Yep.
Ginkgos.
Yeah, especially because we're not planting the females, which actually have the seeds, which actually have the medicinal, like, the male trees are just the ones producing the pollen, which, of all things, we should be avoiding.
Yeah, right.
Anybody who's ever lived, like, down south where there's all the pines and the pollen.
Ugh.
My goodness.
Dude, I
didn't even know that pollen could be like that until I
didn't either. In Texas here isn't quite as bad, but Arkansas, it literally is when it is pollen pine and like coating your car. And it's not like, oh, it's a fine no. Yellow. Coating your car with yellow. It is insane.
Yeah, it's not the flowers, it's the pines.
Yeah.
Okay, my last one, and one that no one has ever heard of, unless you are a botanist probably, is the neophytes. So what are they? This is like one of those catch-all groups that it seems like every taxon has.
Let's just make that catch-all.
I don't know.
The throwaway.
This one. Yeah, because really not much makes them the same. There's a couple of things. I'm going to say, and then a couple of other things that are just too technical to talk about. Without putting it.
And we're going to skip right put those.
Seriously. Yeah. So one thing is that they have vessels in their xylem, which is part of their tissues that, cycles things. Most of the other gymnosperms do not have these vessels. So it actually makes them more like angiosperms, which are the fruit-bearing trees and plants, than the gymnosperms. Their leaves are opposite pairs, which means right across from each other, at right angles to each other.
So specific. This plant is like, you know what we need to do? We need to develop at right angles, and that's
how we're going to group each other.
That's how we're going to do it.
Male and female cones are on different plants, like the ginkgo. And then, like I said, there's a few more things, but that are real technical. So, let's get into a couple of examples. There are 3 families and 96 species of neophytes. There are the ephedras, the nedums, and then the welwitchias, which is what I'm going to talk about.
What was it? How do you spell that one?
It's a person's last name. He named the plant. It's WELWITSCHIA.
Okay.
So,
what the heck is that?
Yeah. So, of these plants, some are trees, some are shrubs, some are vines, and then there's the welwitschia, which is
half dead.
Literally like no other plant found on planet Earth, okay?
It just looks half dead.
Yeah, it looks like a dead octopus washed up on a beach.
It does. It does. If I came across that, I'd be like, oh, it's a dead. I gotta pull it. It's clearly dead.
So it's found in the Namib Desert of Africa. And like I said, there's no other plant like it. They can live anywhere from 1,500 to 2,000 years. Like that, just one plant. They're a very long-lived plant, considering what they look like.
Man, if it was in a different location, Jesus could have chilled with these welwitchias.
Yeah. They used to be collected for firewood or museums, but now they're protected. Some people say they kind of look like a big turnip, but that's below ground.
I was going to say, I was like, nothing.
Yeah. They have a really big taproot, which makes sense because they've got to go down to get water because they're living in a desert. Then they have a cone-shaped stem. It's short and real fat. It's about 25 to 50 inches around. And 12 inches tall.
Okay. I was thinking like an aloe vera plant for a second, but no, not at all.
No. It's just like a big squat stump cone that sometimes has 3 growing points. Weirdly enough.
Okay. I don't think welwitchias. I don't think it knows what it's doing.
No. And then it has 2. Let me say that again. 2 permanent leaves. Okay. They grow for the life of the plant. So it never stops growing.
Okay.
But they're usually only about 10, there's only about 10 feet of the leaf that's alive. The rest is dead at the end because of sand, erosion, and weathering.
But why does it look like there are so many leaves?
So they become split and frayed because of the erosion and the wind and stuff. So what looks like 30 leaves is just 2. Just 2 leaves that have been ripped to shreds by the wind and the sand. All the ends are dead, and just about 10 feet is left alive.
So weird.
Yeah. The only other leaves that this plant has are just brief little leaves that grow around the seed, and a couple of scale-like leaves that cover the stem tip.
This is such a dumb-looking plant for, like, how cool and how rare it is. Like, if I came across it, as a scientist, I probably wouldn't put too much effort into figuring it out or knowing what it is or anything. Be like, that thing's dead. It's weird looking, and it's not, because it's not even cool. Because even, like, the thing that you were talking about, cone in the middle, is, like... Yeah. Even that's just like... It
barely looks like anything. It looks like you stepped on it.
Yes.
It's really flat on top.
Yeah. So weird.
It needs lots and lots of rain to germinate, which is super uncommon in the Namib Desert.
You know, it needs all the rain. Where it grows in the desert.
So it is still actually a mystery as to how this plant survives and has survived for millions of years. So... One thought is that it maybe originally evolved in a wetter environment during the Cretaceous period. So, of course, because of plate tectonics, things aren't where they always were. So, probably when the welwitchia first started out, it was growing in a more tropical climate. And then the poor plant got totally screwed with plate tectonics and ended up living in a desert.
It's like,
and is just too stubborn to let go.
Yeah.
Is just like,
I will survive.
It's
just
do it.
It's sitting there, and it's 2,000-year-old voice just singing "I will survive" as
I'll do it.
Yeah.
They think that
water.
They think that possibly where it lives in the Namib Desert is actually really close to the coast of the ocean, and so it lives in a fog belt.
Okay.
Although it doesn't rain, there is lots of fog, and so the way that the plant is structured, they think that the fog
just stays moist.
Yeah, it collects in the leaves and trickles down to the important bits.
Just such a sucky way to survive. It's like, I'm thriving, I have 2 huge leaves, I got all the water I need, and then, like you said, plate tectonics. So it's like, what the heck is this crap? I'm just moist all the time and I can't get water.
Yeah.
God.
It doesn't sound like it's thriving anymore.
No, not at all.
And then just like there's a really good video on this, like on YouTube. If you just look up welwitchia, there's lots of pictures.
I was just saying, about it. The one video that'll probably pop up.
Yeah. I'm sure you'll know when you see it. And then just a fun fact about this plant: some scientists pose that this group is the bridge between gymnosperms and angiosperms because it has
interesting.
that xylem.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay.
So physically, it's like the bridge. But when looking at DNA, it shows that that is not the case. It actually shows that they did not evolve directly from anything else, but they are like a sister group to conifers.
Huh.
So they and conifers shared a common ancestor and split apart.
Interesting.
So it just goes to show that sometimes it's really hard to look and figure out the tree of life because, yeah, sure, it looks like it evolved from that,
but it didn't.
If you look at the DNA,
yeah, but it didn't at all. Yeah,
but it didn't
at all. Interesting.
And that's the neophytes. There's not a lot to say about them. They're real weird, but kind of cool, and learned a lot.
Like you said, it's kind of like the catch-all. The ones that are just, this is a unique plant that fits nowhere else, but doesn't have a fleshy seed. That's where it goes.
Naked.
Yeah. All right. So the last one that I'm going to talk about are the cycads, and they are a group of primitive plants that have been around for over 300 million years. Which again.
This is like the dinosaur plant, right? This is the one you always see.
This is the one that if somebody says like, oh, it lived in the time of dinosaurs, this is the one that you probably picture. They are native to tropical and subtropical regions around the world, and they are prized for their unique characteristics, including their distinctive appearance, long lifespan, and cultural significance. So, as the same with the ginkgos, I'm going to go explore the history, the physical characteristics, medicinal benefits, and cultural significance. Just run through it.
Cool.
Cycads have a long and interesting history dating back to the time of dinosaurs, like we said, and fossil records suggest that cycads were once widespread also across North America, Europe, and Asia. However, over time, they became extinct in most parts of the world except for a small region in the southern hemisphere where they continued to thrive. It wasn't until the 1800s that cycads were introduced to Europe and later to the United States where they became popular ornamental plants. Once again,
we're like, love it. Love the way it looks.
I love it. I love the way it looks. I'm going to take it with me. Like just a plant. I'm taking it with me. Physically, cycads are unique in several ways. They have a woody trunk and their leaves are often described as fern-like, which makes them pretty cool and very distinctive looking. All right, so cycads are dioecious, meaning that the male and female plants produce separate reproductive structures. Female plants produce a cone-like structure called a megastrobilus that can be several feet long. The male plants produce similar structures called microstrobulus, which is kind of funny. Cycads are also known for their slow growth, with some species taking several decades to reach maturity.
Wow.
But again, it's a tree. Everything is slower in life, tree life.
They take their time.
Yeah, take their time. Let's see. The medicinal benefits of cycads have been known for centuries in traditional medicine. Again, in some cultures, the seeds and leaves of cycads are used to treat a variety of ailments, including headaches, fever, and stomach issues. In recent years, scientific studies have confirmed some of these benefits. For example, cycad extracts have been shown to have antioxidant properties and to protect against cancer cells, which is crazy. Cool. However, it is important to note, as always, that cycads can be toxic if not prepared properly. So it's one of those plants.
With all plants, people, just leave them alone until you know better.
Because it's like you can use it and it has all these amazing benefits.
Yeah.
Or if you sneeze or just look at it wrong when you're preparing it, you're going to die. Like there's just no in between. So I suggest you just don't do it. The cycad plant also has cultural significance in many parts of the world. In some cultures, cycads are considered to be sacred plants, and they are also seen around religious areas. Like everything else in the West, cycads are often planted in gardens because that's a fine looking tree. That's it. Finally, it's worth noting that cycads is also under threat from environmental pressures, just like everything else, because it is so old. And yes, it might be all over the place, but that's because it's ornamental. But naturally where it's found is, again, climate change. It's really hurting right now. So in conclusion, the cycad plant is a remarkable species that has survived millions of years and has been valued for the ornamental medicinal properties, especially how we see it now. While much is still unknown about the full extent of its medicinal benefits, the cycad plant remains an important part of traditional medicine in many cultures and one that scientists are still exploring today.
Cool.
Cycads.
Yeah, they're a cool looking plant.
They are. No, they really are pretty neat.
They look kind of like the tree ferns that we've talked about before, but are different. Like their bark is different.
Yes, no, it definitely is. And it's definitely like a land before time tree kind of thing.
Yeah.
Anybody under 30 probably has no freaking idea what we're talking about. Alrighty, guys. Well, that's Gymnosperms. I mean, I would say if you have anything to talk to us about Gymnosperms, but it's probably all 2 people. Other than that was interesting.
I hope we will get to talk more about conifers and pine trees later. And then, of course, we'll dive into the angiosperms again another time.
Oh, goodness. Yes. Well, go ahead and reach out to us on Twitter so we can talk to us there. Go support us on Patreon. And on both, you can find us under For the Love of Nature if you just search. And interact and chat with us so we can keep bringing you great content every week.
Yeah, now that you know probably more than you wanted to know, your curiosity should be piqued, and hopefully you care just a little bit more, and we'll listen in again next week. Bye!